The fluorescent lights of the towering glass building flickered, casting cold reflections on the marble floors as David, a weary single father, pushed his mop across the polished lobby. Every sweep of the broom felt heavier than the last, each droplet of sweat on his forehead a reminder of the crushing weight of his life. He had been a mechanic once, working with grease-stained hands and a heart full of dreams, but life had a cruel way of changing trajectories. A divorce, medical bills, and a daughter who depended entirely on him had forced him into cleaning offices, far beneath the ambitions he had once carried. But he did it, quietly, without complaint, because he had no choice. That morning, as David was emptying the trash bins near the CEO's office, the air crackled with tension. The elevator doors opened, and out stepped Isabella Marquez, a billionaire known for her ruthless business decisions and icy demeanor. She didn't just walk, she glided, her presence a storm of power and authority. Her eyes caught David in a blink, scanning him with a sharp, imperious gaze. She didn't see a man working, a father struggling to make ends meet. She saw someone beneath her, someone invisible, someone disposable. In a voice as cold as the winter wind outside, she barked at him to hurry up, mocking the way he carried a bucket of cleaning supplies. David flinched under the words, the sting not just from her tone but from the humiliation he had learned to wear like a second skin. He tried to apologize, murmuring softly, but she cut him off with a sharp laugh that echoed through the marble hallways. Other employees looked away uncomfortably, afraid to witness the scene, afraid to breathe in the same air as her wrath. David's hands trembled slightly as he continued his work, swallowing the humiliation like bitter medicine. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. The hours passed in a blur of disinfectant and solitude. David's daughter, Lily, was waiting at home, her small smile and endless questions a bright flicker in his otherwise gray life. She didn't care that he was a cleaner. She only cared that her father loved her fiercely, that he never let the weight of the world crush their little bubble of happiness. But the emptiness of his life gnawed at him. Dreams abandoned, talents buried under years of compromise. It was during the final round of cleaning the executive floor that the incident happened, the one that would change everything. Isabella returned from a meeting, a stack of papers in her hand, and her expression darkened at the sight of a small puddle near the reception desk. Without a second thought, she accused him of carelessness, of incompetence, her words slicing into David like shards of glass. She demanded he clean it immediately, her voice laced with venom, as if every failure in the world belonged to him alone. David felt a surge of anger, so raw and unexpected that it startled him. But it wasn't just anger. It was the deep ache of every moment in his life where he had been underestimated, dismissed, and overlooked. He bent down to mop the floor, his hands shaking, his mind a whirlwind of frustration and sorrow, and then, in a brief moment, he stretched, and the sleeve of his shirt rode up his forearm, revealing a tattoo, a mark of a past he had long hidden. The tattoo was intricate, almost regal, a series of symbols and numbers that held meaning beyond the ordinary eye. Isabella's gaze froze, her harsh tone faltering as recognition hit her like a lightning bolt. Her eyes widened, her posture stiffened. That tattoo was not ordinary. That tattoo belonged to someone who had once commanded empires, someone who had been more than just a CEO, a prodigy in the world of finance, a man who had been rumored to disappear from the public eye under mysterious circumstances. David had kept it hidden, a relic of the man he had been, a story no one could guess from the mop in his hand. A hush fell across the floor as other employees noticed the exchange. David's face remained calm, composed, even as his heart raced. Isabella stepped back, her voice catching in disbelief. She demanded answers, questions spilling from her like a storm breaking, yet David only shook his head gently. He didn't need to explain. The tattoo spoke for him. It told a story of brilliance, of a life that had been redirected by fate's cruel hand. Life had never been fair to David, and yet he had carried on not because he had forgotten who he was, but because he had chosen a different kind of strength, the strength to endure, to provide, to protect his daughter at any cost. He could have flaunted his past, leveraged it for power, but he didn't. Humility, after all, had become his armor. Isabella, who had spent her life believing that power defined worth, found herself shaken. The icy exterior of her confidence cracked as she realized that the man she had humiliated was no ordinary employee. He had been a force, a genius hidden beneath the guise of modesty, a man whose very identity could alter the balance of fortunes. Her arrogance melted into something she hadn't felt in years, genuine respect. The weeks that followed were a blur of change. Isabella personally apologized, not just in words but in actions, offering opportunities she had never imagined for David. She asked him to consult on a major project, a company revival that required the rare genius he had possessed years ago. David accepted, not for revenge, not for money, but for the chance to prove that life could be rewritten, that talent and heart could coexist, that a man could rise from ashes without ever losing the essence of who he truly was. Through this transformation, David never forgot the small joys that had sustained him through hardship. Lily's laughter, the warmth of home-cooked meals, the quiet satisfaction of a day completed with honesty and effort. And as he worked alongside Isabella, teaching her lessons about humility, patience, and the unseen struggles of ordinary people, a bond formed that transcended titles and wealth. He had given the world a second chance to see him for who he truly was, and in return, he had reshaped a life that had been rigid with pride. Before the final project launch, David stood in the office, looking out at the skyline, feeling the weight of the journey that had brought him here. The mop and bucket, the humiliation, the sleepless nights, the endless sacrifices, all had led to this moment of quiet triumph. Isabella entered, silently acknowledging his presence, and in her eyes was the respect and admiration that no words could capture. David smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace. He had survived, not because the world had been kind, but because he had refused to let cruelty define him. Just before the story ends, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below how this story touched your heart and which part inspired you the most. David's journey wasn't just about redemption or success. It was about resilience, about holding onto dignity in the face of humiliation, about the quiet courage that often goes unnoticed. His tattoo, once a symbol of a life left behind, became a beacon of hope, a reminder that true identity cannot be erased, that the past and present can coexist in harmony, and that every struggle carries within it the seeds of triumph. As the final days of the project unfolded, David's influence transformed the company, guiding decisions with insight, empathy, and intelligence. Isabella learned to value more than profit. She learned to see people, to honor their unseen stories. And David, the single dad who had once been humiliated and dismissed, found not just professional recognition but personal fulfillment, the knowledge that he had shaped not only a company, but a future where kindness, resilience, and authenticity could thrive. If this story touched your heart, made you believe in second chances, or reminded you of the strength hidden within ordinary people, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps bring more stories like this to life. And so, David's life had changed, not through revenge, not through wealth, but through the quiet persistence of a man who refused to be diminished. The mop, the floor, the endless hours of cleaning, all had led to this revelation of identity, a triumph not just of skill, but of heart. In the end, it was never about the title or the recognition. It was about being seen, truly seen for who he was, and finally, at last, stepping into the world with dignity restored.